Jay Sano without intro music. Jay Sano with intro music. Intro music remix. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Hello everybody, welcome back. It is Jeff again, and I know it's been a long time since I made an episode, and it's because I'm trying to make progress to get enough supplies to finish my beacon. I will show you the progress I've made thus far. I'm up to 16 more blocks of iron. Amazingly, my iron excursions have not gone nearly as well as planned. However, I do have 28 diamonds now. I was mining and I found, I can't say more diamonds than I did iron, but I did find quite a bit of diamonds. There's no question about that. And it's really funny because I love diamonds, but I don't want to go there. But I really need iron. So what I'm doing today is I found a ravine back here when I was kind of mining toward it, and I'm gonna go in the direction of this ravine. I figure I'm gonna be able to light up some stuff and hopefully find a lot of surface iron. It'll be more exciting because instead of just mining, I'll be, fighting enemies and things like that. But all for exceed, I've been mining like crazy all down this corridor. I don't think I left anything here. Nope, I did not. Nothing there. So I figured that today would be an interesting day to talk kind of about uplifting moments, I guess would be the term. So in my profession, I'm back to the nursing profession, actually doing bedside nursing and things like that, as many of you know. And I will tell you, I'm in the ICU setting. I was in there before, and I wanted to silk touch that, and there's an enemy coming somewhere real close to me. There he is. And one of the very difficult parts about being in the ICU is the fact that people are there because they're sick. Everybody doesn't always get better. Now, people who don't make it, it's always a sad and unfortunate circumstance. But one thing that you sometimes do get to deal with in the ICU is donor patients. And donor patients are, people who are going to be able to donate organs if they have either agreed to do so or the family agrees for them to do so after their death. So, if you have a driver's license, you can, make yourself a donor or not. Back before 2006, that was not an ironclad document. If you made yourself a donor, your family could, if given the circumstance that you would be able to donate, your family very easily could still say, nope, I don't want my loved one to donate anything, and whoever actually has your technical power of attorney at the time, that call can get made and they can overturn that. As of 2006, they changed the law to make that a legally binding document, and what they call somebody as a designated donor. So if I put on my license, I'd like to be a donor. And the circumstances come down to the fact where I can donate organs, because it's a very rare circumstance when the possibility actually exists for those who don't know, because you have to be able to have healthy organs. Many types of accidents, things like that, your organs may not be extremely healthy anymore, nature of your illness and why you died or whatnot. So you might not have anything that's able to be donated. Look at that, it's the dude, he's still there. That dude's holding an egg, but my fun Halloween friend is still around. I'm going to try to keep him around and kill that other guy. See how long he can stay there for. So I've dealt with a decent amount of donor patients in my day. And donor patients, I really like. So it looks like a lot of this stuff. So up there is pretty dark still. Donor patients, I really like dealing with donor patients when the family is accepting of it. They're kind of, because sometimes you get families who are extremely happy with the fact that, if something terrible has happened to their family member, but they are taking solace in knowing that at least with whatever terrible thing has happened, they are able it wasn't all for naught, that if they can donate something and help somebody else and save somebody else, it doesn't make it worth it per se, but it can add a better situation to an otherwise like horrible tragedy. So many family members are extremely happy with the donation process. Others, however, are not so happy with the donation process. Now, when you're dealing with donors, sometimes the family, well, I can't say they're not allowed, but family will just leave at one point after, family can leave at some point often because they don't want to, be around for that. They'll say their goodbyes, make peace with everything, and, go about their way. And when you're taking care of a donor patient, they are not alive, obviously, because they have to be clinically declared at some point for them to become the donor. So they may not be alive, but they have a heartbeat. They are breathing through the use of a ventilator. They're breathing, but to the outside person, you look at these people, and if you didn't know any better, it looks like somebody who was just sedated in an ICU, because you look at the monitor, they have a heart rhythm. You see their chest moving up and down because the ventilator is breathing for them. And it's one of those situations that makes it extremely difficult for a lot of families to grasp, especially when it was a sudden, unexpected death. Now, before I left the ICU, I had taken care of, I think, 3 different donor patients. And the first one I took care of was somebody, I took the report from a person who was already declared a donor. The family had already said their goodbyes and were gone, and it was just, me taking care of a patient we were just keeping them going and trying to keep their organs perfused, and while they were looking for matches for who they could, donate the organs to. So it's very difficult to quote unquote keep a dead person alive, to say. It's a lot of work. But when you're not having to, talk to family and things like that, it can easily be managed, because you're just focusing on doing that. And even though it's a sad situation, I definitely, when I was dealing with that first donor, I was kind of like, I felt good about myself, because I knew that I was doing something that was going to save somebody else's life, or, make their quality of life better, hopefully. And that was the whole point of it all. So the first 2 patients I dealt with were that circumstance. I dealt with one donor patient shortly before I originally left the ICU and went back to the bed, or back to IT for the time that I did. Now, this one was a younger person, and when I say younger in this case, like 40s or something like that, like way before your life expectancy should be that you would be passing away. And it was an unexpected accident of some type that left this individual brain dead, which is a very sad story, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate, but things like this unfortunately do happen in the world. Now, this gentleman was a designated donor on his ID, and when I took report on this person when they transferred him in from our trauma area, and we didn't know at the time if he was brain dead or not. Yeah, when we took him for brain death, I think we actually did apnea testing. There's a few ways to determine brain death, but the determination was made that this patient had no brain waves. It was a brain dead individual, which opened up the ability for brain death donation, meaning you can keep the rest of the body perfused as well as you can, keep checking the organs, see what ones are viable, start finding a match, and they can try to donate. Now, this particular case, the family was very against donation. They were I'm not even sure that they were actually against donation, but I think they didn't believe that he was gone. And this happens quite a bit because it's a very sad situation. It's so unexpected. They come into the ICU, they see him breathing with a heartbeat. They did not believe that he was gone. Designated donor, We started the process off. He's able to donate despite what the family says, because much of the family was so against it and wouldn't do it anymore. Now, I had this particular patient the very first day he came in, and then 2 consecutive shifts after that. So 3 12-hour shifts in a row. This patient was my patient. And like I said, it was a lot of work, and sometimes the matching process takes that long. You have somebody who is clinically declared that you still are working with as harder than you sometimes work on other people, because it takes so much more medical care to keep things perfusing right, because once the brain shuts down, the body just starts throwing out chemicals. It doesn't know what to do anymore. It's not being controlled. So you're kind of manually controlling a lot of things to keep things alive for as long as you can until they can match them and find a recipient for the organs. All 3 days, the family stayed around because they were assuming that there was some miracle was going to happen and he was going to just wake back up, and that was going to be it, and we were all just going to be wrong. And I will tell you, every time I walked in the room, the family told me what an evil person I was and how they couldn't believe I was treating him as a person who wasn't going to wake up, that we were just preparing him for donation, and what a bad person this made me excuse me, because he was still alive, etc., etc. The night shift nurse that took over for me the first night refused to take the patient back the next day because she couldn't handle the emotional turmoil that the family was putting her through. And I'll tell you, I almost stopped. The only reason I didn't refuse to take the patient back at the time was because I didn't want anybody else to have to deal with that family and that feeling that I had when I went home. I had already had it. I had already been dealing with it. I could deal with it for a little bit longer. I never knew that it was going to take all 3 days of my shift. And actually, he didn't even go to the OR for official transplant until after the 3rd shift that I had with him that evening is when they finally took him for transplant. And he got to donate a bunch of his organs, so it helped out a lot of people. But I will tell you, I was so emotionally distraught during that whole process that I'm getting like really sad even thinking about it, because the situation itself is sad, as well as just the feeling that you have for that. But I shortly after that went to IT, so I knew I wasn't going to have to deal with it anymore. And when I came back to the ICU, one of my biggest fears was that of taking on a donor patient again. And since I've been back, I've actually already had 3, and I've only been back for like a month and a half. And I'll tell you, I'm getting to like it more and more, just because I think I've grown a lot since then, that I now realize that I can take that emotional punch knowing what I'm doing this for. I will tell you, one of the cases I had quite recently was one on a person that didn't end up being a donor. He was not a designated donor, and the family just wanted to keep prolonging the conversation. But they, again, were ones that thought that there was going to be a miracle. He had been declared, and they assumed there was going to be a miracle. So they kept doing everything they could to prolong the situation, thinking he was going to wake back up, and they wouldn't make him a donor. But they kept telling us that they were thinking about making him a donor, which is why they kept everything going. And he eventually passed on his own before the choice could be made that any organ donation could happen. So it was kind of unfortunate, because no organs were donated from that patient. And that was difficult, but it was, again, dealing with the family. And I understand completely why. Like, I do not take any blame to the family at all, because I understand how hard it is and how ridiculous it is to look at a person who looks like they're breathing, has a heart rhythm, and somebody's telling you, I'm sorry, they're dead. They're not here anymore. It's a very, very, very difficult and traumatic experience for the family. And I get that completely. But I was just trying my hardest to do what I could, comfort the family, and hope that there could be, something good that could come out of the end of the situation. You don't win them all, but the reason I bring this up is because oh my God, I got myself kind of stuck in a corner. I was not expecting to get stuck in that way. The reason I bring this up, though, is I recently got to deal with the other end of things. A patient I recently had for a few days was a very young person, and when I say young, I mean less than 30. I'm not a pediatric hospital, so it's not pediatrics, but young adult under the age of 30, who'd been waiting for a heart for the last 9 years, was on the heart transplant list, had an LVAD for the last multiple months because his heart had basically just stopped working, and that was the only way to prolong things until hopefully a transplant could be acquired. And one recently was acquired, and I had the pleasure of getting to work with this patient for the last couple days, and seeing that side of it all and watching him progress from transplant to the confusion and his body's getting used to the new organ, and you're trying to watch to make sure the body's not rejecting it and all this stuff, and to watch him, and he was doing very, very, very well when I left, like basically getting ready to go home. Not quite to that point, but he was going to be leaving the ICU. And just talking to this guy, and he was the nicest guy and funny guy. His personality was actually a lot like mine, so we got along extremely well. I mean, we would sit there and talk about, the cute nurses and this and that on the unit, and he was hitting on the nutritionist. Like, it was really amazing to see. And, like I said, as taking care of the donor patients was getting just harder and harder because of the nature of dealing with the family and the emotional turmoil that you can go through. And when you never see that other side of it, though, I basically know from that first patient that I was just emotionally a wreck from. I kind of have to have faith that he donated these organs. I hope they actually did help somebody, but I never saw that other side of it before. And now being able to see the other side of it, I gotta tell you, it's making me emotionally, like, not sad, but very happy. And I know I sound sad when I'm talking about it, but it's like a happy sadness sounding, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to share the amazing experience. It's so hard to put into words what it really was like to be able to see that side of it, and just know that emotional turmoil that I went through before was for a reason. I mean, somebody somewhere else a couple days later was dealing with the person who got those organs, and seeing them, hopefully, because all organ transplants don't go wonderfully, but hopefully if they did and when everything went according to plan, hopefully to watch somebody's quality of life just amazingly improve. I mean, this guy that I'm talking about now, I mean, he got a new heart. A new heart. Can you imagine? He had a machine that was running his heart for the past 4 or 5 months. He couldn't be more than, a couple hours away from, well, I guess he'd never even get that far. He couldn't be more than pretty much in the same house as a plug. He had to be by a power supply at all times, because if his batteries ran out and he wasn't close enough to a power supply, his heart wasn't pumping anymore. And now he's free. I mean, he's not out of the woods. Heart transplants, organ transplants are very difficult. You're very immunocompromised for the duration of your life, because you got to make sure your body doesn't reject it by taking these, immunosuppressive drugs, to make sure your body doesn't start attacking itself, thinking that this donated organ is a foreign body that it wants to eradicate. So yes, it's a dangerous road ahead, but it's a dangerous road where he has such a better fighting chance now than he ever did before. And just seeing that side of it it's so amazing. I don't know. This really isn't a Minecraft episode. I did some Minecraft things, but it's one of those things that I just wanted to share my story. I wanted to talk about it, get it out there, and just basically say, like, when you go through tough times, really tough times, emotionally destructive times in your life, just take those as lessons to build up for the future, because eventually you're going to see some good reason for having to deal with what you had to deal with. And in my case, in this particular instance, it was I had to emotionally be distraught about a family who basically told me I was evil and I was a horrible person all the time, that their family member was dead, that they really weren't dead, and this and that. And it comes back by showing that I put up with all of that and took that inside and I didn't blow up on the family or anything. I didn't make them feel like they were doing anything wrong, because I completely understand where they're coming from. But I did all that for the purpose of somebody getting the organs just like this person that I was taking care of, who got this organ and was able to now improve their life. So I'm a firm believer in organ donation. I'm not going to push my morals on anybody. Obviously, you guys know my stance on it, but I am a firm believer in it, especially after seeing the things that I've seen like this. But I don't know, kind of a heart-lifting, heartfelt, warm episode for myself to share with you guys. So thanks for watching. Hopefully next time you see me, I will have gathered enough supplies that we'll be able to work on this beacon. I'm not sure I'm going to make it by episode 100, because that is the next episode, and I've already been putting this off, trying to get the beacon ready for episode 100, but I'm a lot of blocks away, because I think I needed 79, and this is what I've come up with so far. I could make emerald blocks, I guess. I could make diamond blocks temporarily. I could make gold blocks. There's a lot of things I could make to progress this, but I don't know. We'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed the story, and I will see you guys next time.